You should look at the fine print in your CCW insurance. You could be missing something big. Now imagine this, it's 2 in the morning. You're sitting in a cold stainless steel bench in a room that smells like industrial floor cleaner. Fluorescent lights above are buzzing with a low, irritating hum that vibrates right through your skull. Your wrists are raw from where the handcuffs were, and your heart is still pounding in your chest from the adrenaline dump. After the incident, you reached into your pocket, grabbed your phone, and called that big name CCW insurance company you pay for every month. And you think, it's fine. I'm the good guy. They've got my back. Here's the hard truth. While you're sitting under those buzzing lights, a corporate insurance adjuster is reviewing all the facts, making a decision that could affect the rest of your life. That insurance adjuster is going to ask, do we cover this incident? And after a while, the answer could be, no, we are not going to cover this incident. I'm Dave with Everyday Gun Owner. Today we're exposing 3 things your CCW coverage may not protect and one alternative that should give you a real peace of mind. To understand how dangerous this trap is, you have to look at what happened to Maurice Burt. Maurice was an Army veteran and a barbershop owner in Pennsylvania. He was a responsible guy, held a valid carry permit, and being an Army vet, like me, he obviously knew how to handle firearms. One evening, a neighbor who had been harassing him for years corners him in a parking lot. Guy throws a bunch of racial slurs at Maurice and steps into Maurice's space. Starts throwing a flurry of punches, grabbing Maurice by the front of his shirt. Now, we know that Maurice was holding his phone with a live 911 operator listening into the whole thing on speakerphone. Now, to save his life, Maurice drew his licensed gun and fired. The police rolled up. Maurice had his gun placed flat on the asphalt right next to his driver's license, military ID, CCW permit, gets in the back of the cruiser, goes to the station, gives a full detailed statement without a lawyer. My guess, because he's probably thinking, well, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm the victim here. Well, unfortunately not. District attorney didn't care about the 911 tape. They didn't care about the military service. The district attorney slapped him with a first-degree murder charge, which carries a mandatory sentence of life without parole, as well as a third-degree murder charge and possessing an instrument of crime. Maurice was held for 10 months while everything was sorted out and before he was eventually acquitted. Now he's trying to start over. He has lost his house, his business, and 10 months of his life. And this brings us to point number 1, which we call the clawback. Now, if you've been following the CCW world, you might know that the big giants have updated their policy. They listened to the backlash. They announced they were getting rid of their elective clawback clause and that they fund your trial up front. Now, that sounds great on a marketing brochure, but if you take a close look at the fine print of that I want to be absolutely clear. I have no problem with USCCA. I am a certified instructor. I love their training and their programs, and I'm not bashing them. But I want to make sure you understand what they're telling you. They updated their policy, and it states they won't demand their money back unless required by applicable law. So even if USCCA promises they won't sue you for the money, if the law requires it, and for convicted criminals, as it often does, that protection can disappear. Now, why is that line in there? USCCA is backed by commercial insurance policy. By law, state insurance commissioners strictly forbid insurance companies from paying for or prosecuting a convicted criminal. They also added coverage for plea deals, but only if you don't plead to a crime of violence. Now think about that for a minute. If you're facing a prosecutor, lawyer negotiates a plea deal down to manslaughter, reckless endangerment just to keep you from spending life in prison, those can be, and probably are, depending on your state, crimes of violence. The moment you take that deal to save your life, your insurance safety net can vanish. And their new contract says they will fund your trial as long as a judge permits the self-defense argument in court. You may have to go through months of preliminary hearings before a judge ever makes that call. And if the judge says no, whether it's early on, you're completely on your own. Now, I realized even the updated insurance policies are still bound by corporate loopholes and government mandates. Commercial model is built to protect the corporate bottom line. I don't think it's for your freedom. Now, you also have what they call one-day denials. Companies like CCW Safe, US Law Shield don't have clawback clauses or recoupment, which is great, but the fine print can still leave you stranded. CCW Safe recently removed several exclusions from their contract, which is worth acknowledging and looking at. They've replaced them with a subjective threshold. Contract says they only fund your case if admissible evidence of self-defense exists. Well, my question is, who decides if that evidence exists on day one while you're sitting in a jail? Corporate managers? Police report looks bad or the prosecutor's charges are severe, they can call it a non-covered event, deny your claim before a lawyer ever steps foot in the courtroom. U.S. Law Shield takes a similar approach. They only cover incidents determined to be a legal act of self-defense, and you don't get to choose your attorney. Doing a full breakdown of their contract terms in separate video, so watch for that. And number 3 is coming up shortly, but here's the real solution and why I actually canceled all my CCW insurance. This is exactly why I went looking for a real solution and why I use attorneys on retainer, or AOR now. AOR is not an insurance company. Attorneys on Retainer is a program that's administered by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. They completely threw out the traditional insurance model. Instead, they're backed by an actual law firm. They represent members through all 50 states in collaboration with their local counsel, administered by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. So when you join Attorneys on Retainer, you are not buying an insurance policy underwritten by a corporate third party. You are signing a literal legal retainer to become an active client in their law firm before a crisis ever happens. And because they are a law firm backed by their own risk retention group, they have no criminal act exclusions, no clawback clauses. They explicitly state in their contract they do not care what the prosecutor charges you with, whether it's manslaughter, aggravated assault, first-degree murder. As long as you can assert in good faith you were defending your life, they will step in. And they never will ask for their money back. They cover 100% of your legal attorney fees, investigators, expert witnesses, court costs through a full jury trial and appeals. No caps, no loopholes, no corporate adjusters looking for an excuse to abandon you. Now, I have called them up. I spoke personally to them, and they are some very friendly, down-to-earth, easy-to-work-with people. Pricing is very reasonable, about $37 a month for an individual. And if you want to add family members, the price drops even lower. And this is an absolute game changer for us. If you're in California, you have to defend yourself with a pen, tactical pen or OC, you're covered. As long as you're not committing a criminal act like robbery or domestic violence, you're covered. Attorneys on Retainer is an absolute must. If you like to travel and visit family across the U.S., you're covered in all 50 states and D.C. And this is so much of a game changer from traditional CCW insurance. Both my dad and I signed up. Because if the worst ever happens, my dad or myself have to defend our home. We don't want to be dealing with corporate insurance, phone tree, or an adjuster trying to find a loophole. We want an outstanding team of elite trial lawyers locked in from the start. Now, this does bring me to point 3. One final thing to think about before you finish your coffee today. If you call a standard CCW insurance hotline after a self-defense incident, you're basically talking to a customer service representative or an insurance agent. They are not lawyers, so attorney-client privilege typically does not exist. Those recordings and statements can be subpoenaed by a prosecutor and used to tear your case apart in court. Typically, to trigger attorney-client privilege under the law, conversation has to meet a strict criteria. It has to be a confidential communication made between the client, that's you and I, and a licensed attorney or their direct legal staff for the specific purpose of seeking legal advice. Now, Attorneys for Freedom is the only law firm in the nation exclusively committed to self-defense. You're involved in a self-defense incident and you're already signed a client on their retainer, this completely shifts. When you call their 24/7 emergency hotline, their contract states you are connected directly to a criminal defense attorney from their firm. Because you are a client speaking directly to your attorney to get immediate advice, attorney-client privilege is triggered from the very first second you pick up the phone. It's legally impossible for a prosecutor to subpoena that call, copy the audio, or use anything you say as evidence against you. Now, we all pray we never have to use this stuff. But if you're going to spend your hard-earned money to protect your family, make sure you're buying actual protection, not an upfront illusion. If you're interested in finding out more, click the link right below in the description box, or use the pinned comment and use the code EverydayGunOwner. Till the end of July, to celebrate America's 250-year anniversary, they're taking $50 off the setup fees in individual plans. Family plans remain the same, but for individuals, you'll get $50 off that one-time setup fee. So head over to the Attorneys on Retainer website. I have the link below, and check out their contract and info for yourself. Get a real legal team standing in front of your freedom before your next trip to the range or trip to the store. Thanks for hanging out with me. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.